5 Monday music motivation. I think this one is a little bit of elaboration or extension of my video from this last Saturday. So if you haven't checked that out, there's a link in the description to watch that. But I'll give a quick little overview of it here as well so that you can have an idea of what I'm talking about, even if you haven't seen that one. So what last Saturday's video was this huge breakthrough that I had in my practice and in my playing that sort of blew my mind, was really surprising to me. It seemed really obvious, but when I noticed it, it just like total light bulb moment. So I've recently been having this issue in my practicing or in my performing where when I go to have a performance or do a recording, it's good, it's fine, but I feel like there's a gap between my practice and the peak in my practice and my performance. And I feel like most of my performances and recordings have been hitting about like 80% of where my peak practice is. And it's still good, and been happy with my performances and things, but I'm always like, oh, in the practice room, I sound so good. And in performances, I sound pretty good. So I've been thinking about like, how do I maximize that? And I thought maybe it was a performance anxiety thing and I just need to get more experience performing, which always helps. But what hit me and the light bulb moment that I had in my practice was I was sitting there playing through something. I was first learning a piece. I was sort of getting it up to tempo, and it was slow enough that I could play it at tempo, but fast enough that I wasn't totally comfortable playing it at tempo. And I was thinking through it and I'm like, yeah, I think I'm only about like 80% comfortable with this, but I'll like learn it more later. And then the light bulb went off and I was like, wait, I perform at about 80%. I'm practicing at about 80% comfortable. I bet that there's a correlation there and a connection. And I totally think that's the case. And the reason or the way that I'm going to be able to close the practice and performance gap is to always practice at 100% or as close to 100% as I can comfortable. So that's probably going to mean more slow practice for me, more smaller chunks, more being deliberate, being picky, really getting what I want much more of the time, never sort of practicing and being like, yeah, that's good enough, it'll clean up later. Because if it's not cleaning up now, then it's not going to clean up later. So I have to do the work now to get it 100% comfortable. So that's the sort of recap of that video. I think this is such an important idea that I'm probably going to talk about it a few more times because, again, it was a huge breakthrough for me. Big light bulb moment, and I hope that it can be helpful for all of you too. If you feel like you're struggling with consistency and feel like you're not always getting the results that you want, especially in recordings or performances, then look at how you're practicing. Are you always practicing where you're getting it correct? You're in control of getting it correct? Because that's what's going to lead to that consistency that you're wanting. You have to have that really comfortable, really good in the practice so that it can consistently come out really good. So what I wanted to do today, elaborating on that a little bit, is, well, first of all, just remind you of that idea because, again, I think it's so powerful and so important and so easy to overlook. We're always like, yeah, I'll figure it out later. And then next thing you know, the performance is here and you only ever 80% figured it out. The other thing that I wanted to do was talk about how it's going in my journey. I think this is very common that when we're practicing and playing, we get into habits and our brain just automatically does whatever it's used to doing because that's how the brain science works, right? Our brains just get better at doing whatever they're doing. So I noticed in my playing, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago now that I had this realization. I think for the first week after it, I did a pretty good job of really going for it and really being 100% comfortable in what I was learning, and it felt great. I think last week, I had a practice session where I was working on Paragon by Teresa Martin, and was trying to learn the last 3 pages. I think the week before I did the first 3 pages, felt really good, 100% comfortable, really dialed in. And it was actually on the first page of that piece that I had that realization. So from there, I really went into it. And I think the first 3 pages are solid. Last week, I had a practice session where I practiced for quite a bit already. And I was like, okay, I'm going to look at the last 3 pages of Paragon and sort of get that going. That was a little bit my goal for the week, was to learn those pages. So I started going at it, and I was already a little bit tired. I was already felt like I had practiced quite a bit. I was kind of in the mindset of like, oh, I'm just going to sort of get through this, figure some stuff out, and just like get a rough first start to it. And I did that. And I realized as I was going that I was not doing it to 100% comfortable. I had fell back into that habit and to that routine of sort of the 80%, just sort of feeling my way out. And it, again, it sounded fine. That's the real trap of this too, is it's like, it sounds totally fine. Not perfect. It's not exactly what I want, but it sounds good enough. But it doesn't feel good enough. It doesn't feel 100% in control. And that's the big shift, is I need to feel comfortable and get what's coming out of the instrument sounding really good too. So that's what I'm going to sort of double down on this week. And let me pull up my template for you all. So that was my reflection, was I was a little bit kind of comfortable on those last 3 pages. So this week, my goal is to really get them. Really get those last 3 pages at actually 100% comfortable. Doesn't have to be at 100% tempo. Doesn't have to be all 3 pages in a row. It can be smaller chunks, whatever it takes to get it comfortable. But it's going to be more important for me to be comfortable with it rather than just trying to like power through it or get a rough idea and then do stuff that I'm going to polish up later. I want to really get it now and really get it comfortable. So that's what I'm working on. That's sort of an update on this process. I think maybe in a few weeks from now, I'll give another update on it, because this is a pretty significant mindset shift going into my practice that I'm going to be really working on and exploring and experimenting with. And I think it's going to have great results. Already the week or 2 that I was really focusing on it already had great results. So I'm going to really try to keep that up in my practice, keep it going, keep building the new habit and the new brain pathways to always be thinking about totally comfortable, never pushing just for the sake of pushing just to see if I can play it fast or anything like that. I'm going to always be comfortable. And then I'm hoping to perform this piece and a recital towards the end of this year. So that'll be sort of the ultimate payoff. So hopefully I'll be able to keep you all up to date with this. If any of you are trying this sort of 100% comfortable practice mindset, I would love to see in the comments how that's going for you, anything that you've learned from it or any new takeaways that you've had, because I think it's going to be really powerful and really effective. So I'll keep you up to date with that. And now for you, the most important part of these Monday music motivations, the whole goal of these is for you to get your practice planned out, scheduled out, and filled out. So you can go to the link in the description, quickstartclarinet.com/get started, and you can download the exact template that I'm using, or you can recreate it. Very simple. Date for the week, reflection of how things are going. You saw for mine, I said, last week wasn't so great because I wasn't getting that 100% comfortable. I was just sort of kind of getting it, kind of working through it. Then the goal for this week, my goal is to actually do it 100% comfortable for those last 3 pages. So it's that nice specific amount. I'll know by the end of the week if I achieved that or not. Then the plan, and I think that's the most important part, where you schedule what days you're going to be working on it, what are your practice times, what are you going to work on for those practice times, put that into your calendar, set reminders, do whatever you do as if this was a doctor's appointment or a work meeting or a school class, whatever it is, set it up so that your practice time is that sort of sacred appointment that you're going to keep to yourself to achieve those goals for this week. Then we'll just keep stepping forward every single week, and next thing you know, you're going to be a whole lot better musician. So right now, right when this is done, fill out your template, fill out your practice plan for the week, put it in your calendars, and have a great week of practicing. And I'll see you next week for the next live Monday music motivation. And keep going 100% comfortable. Make the plan, fill it out right now. Have a great week.